Welcome. This is going to be a very quick update on where the CalExit movement is now. And really the topic is going to be, what is the chance of America staying together? Hi, my name is Mark Ruiz-Evans. I was the founder of CalExit. I've been pursuing the idea of California being independent from America since around 2011, about a decade. And I've seen a lot, and I followed the idea of secession and national divorce and political division. For many years, I've actually interviewed 200 plus professors who are experts in political division. And like I said, I've been following it for 10 years. Things have dramatically changed in just the last 10 days. So you could look at 2016 and say there was a big jump with the introduction of Trump. You could say January 6th, 2021, I believe, was also a big jump. Well, the wake of the Charlie Kirk assassination, not even the Charlie Kirk assassination itself, the response to it. Assassinations are bad. Violence in politics is bad. It is not the assassination itself that is tearing apart the country. It is the response to it. So Charlie Kirk recently was shot, and that is bad and wrong. And we don't support that at all. In response, so basically what happened was Charlie Kirk got shot. Bad and wrong. I don't like the guy. I think he's racist and a bigot, but killing people in politics is wrong and bad. Always. What happened was the left basically started celebrating his death. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And for the people who didn't celebrate, they didn't really see the point on why I should fall into line and support this guy. A lot of people felt Charlie Kirk was not a good guy for liberals. But conservatives really did. So liberals basically said, we don't care that Kirk died. The conservatives were so incensed by the liberal reaction, J.D. Vance saying, all the left and et cetera does horrible things. The right was so incensed by the liberal reaction that they've basically become exceptionally angry themselves. So what you have was Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Liberals started mocking it. Other liberals said, what's the big deal? The guy's a racist. Conservatives were offended by that response and felt, well, a man died. You should show sadness like we normally do. Liberals said, hell no. To which conservatives said, wow, it's disgusting that people would celebrate and not be able to come together that a man is killed. And liberals said, I'm never going to back a racist. So that activity in the last 10 days alone is what has driven America to new heights of separation desire that we've never seen before. Let's start here. Hard facts. Most voters think American divisions cannot be overcome, the poll says. This just came out recently. Let's see this. There we go. So on October 2nd, this came out. And what it's showing is this poll here. So from 2020 to 2025, they were tracking if you think America can be fixed. Now we are at where a majority does not. So Times Siena poll of 1,313, taken between September 22nd and 27th, conducted an especially fraught moment, 2 weeks after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So this poll was not done at the assassination. It was done 2 weeks after the assassination, when the liberal reaction or the conservative reaction to the liberal reaction could be seen. When Democrats were asked whether they think Republicans as the enemy or fellow Americans, 10% chose the harsher description, a modest decline from last year, and 14% of Republicans say they think of Democrats as the enemy. Today, spasms of political violence have erupted across the country with alarming frequency, including the killings of Mr. Kirk and a Minnesota senator and her husband, etc. So before the 2024 election, polls show that people were likely to identify issues such as inflation, abortion, and immigration as the most important. Now it's polarization. So here's the other byline. With this, you can see between 2023 to 2025, polarization has almost doubled in importance. Originally, it was a 7. It was below immigration and below Republicans and below the state of democracy. Now polarization has, in just the last 10 days, risen to be more important than polarization, or equally to that. And it's higher than immigration issue, higher than Republicans, and higher than the state of democracy. And just to be clear, here is the bylines from that poll. It is everybody, black, white, Latino, old, young, middle-aged, Midwest, South, Southwest, Republican, Independent, everybody across the board, 2/3 of them all think America can't be fixed. So it's not just like the Democrats or the Republicans. Here's the bylines. 2/3 of everybody thinks America can't be fixed. That's what they said. They said the last 10 days, and it's because of things like this. That's what they're going off of. Here's that poll again. And I want to point this out. We did a little bit of analysis, so you can see ups and downs in the polls. Why did division seem to get really bad around 2020? Well, that was the January 6th Capitol attack. Then it hits a peak, and then it starts to drop down right around September 2020. Why was it dropping down? COVID was ending. People weren't dying. So America started to come together after January 6th because COVID was ending and they were coming together for that. But look at the trend line. To the right of that triangle underneath January 6th, the trend line is higher than the trend line to the left or before the triangle. So the trend line from June to September 2020 is lower than the trend line from September 2022 to June 2024. So the moment we come out of COVID, it goes back to worse than it was before January 6th, where it continues. Now, Donald Trump is, there's an attempted assassination. That's where the yellow lines are on the right. And there's a drop in division and sort of a coming back together. But if you notice, the trend line almost goes back to where it was. And then now with September 22nd of 2025, we're back to rising to the same level of division. Look at that trend line. That is a huge division amongst the country of about 60% was the normal background division line. Not alone. Here's this poll. CBS News poll finds Americans say political violence unacceptable, concerned about in the future. 68, 70%, 2/3 of the public is concerned about violence for politics recently. Let's take a look at this one. Do you talk to people with different political views? Almost never. Online, 60%, and in person, 50%. So about half to 2/3 of the country never speaks to someone who is on the other side. Of the people who are doing what would keep America together, it is 12%. Basically 12 and 9%, you can look at 11.2. So around 10% of the country is actually talking to people with a different political view. Only 10%, 90% basically does not converse regularly with the other side. Do most people get along? Well, yeah, they get along, but 62% say politics drives them apart. Okay, 90% of you are not in regular communication to make sure politics doesn't drive people apart. 2/3, 64%, country can't come together. 68%, violence will increase. 62%, politics drives us apart. 90% won't even speak to the other side. This is talking about that poll. The new poll Thursday reveals that most Americans believe the country is too far gone to overcome its deep divisions. Just 1/3 of voters think the United States is capable of solving its political problems. This stands in stark contrast to those from September 2020, when 51% of voters still believed America could unite. So you go back to 2020, about half of the country believed America could unite. It was 50% thought no, 50% thought yes. Now it's a solid 2/3 think the country can't come together. 2020, it was 50-50. Weren't sure if America could come together. Now a solid 2/3 says we can't come together, and only 1/3 thinks we can in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, when this started happening. Okay, let's go to another poll. This is from NPR. More Americans now agree political violence may be necessary to right the country. Big changes. Overall, a 10% increase in people who say violence is acceptable. For Democrats, it went 12 to 28%. For Republicans, it went 28 to 31. So what scares me there is that Democrats tripled their support for violence. 36 is about triple 12. So we're looking at close to tripling support of liberals for violence. That's recently, wake of Charlie Kirk. Here's this poll. It goes back from the 1990s, and you can see how it compares to this one, showing we're getting worse. This one only looks at the last couple of years. This one goes back to the 1980s, and you can see things are definitely getting worse. The amount of division has massively increased from the first Trump through Biden and now to the second Trump one. So, also, we have Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about reviving a call for national divorce. But I wanted to show you a little bit of this, like the actual people's reactions. So what grabbed me was that if you look at normal internet, these are 6 different podcasts. America is extremely divided. The divided states of America. We're heading towards civil war. America is too divided. Christian nationalism will end the USA, Charlie Kirk, something about second civil war. All of those things were late September, early October. So this is the public from these people don't know each other. They're different channels, and they're all talking about, can America be divided? Now, here's the thing. None of these people, to my knowledge, are talking about this poll. So if this poll's out saying America is too divided to come together, how come all these people are having the same comment at the same time, but they're not referencing that poll? Unless they're sensing the same thing. Not alone. This will always happen right before everything collapses by Tom Bellew. Again, August 25th, relatively recently, 2/3 of Americans now say the other political party is not just wrong, but a serious threat. This was last week, September 14th. He wonders whether or not this is the end of a dark period or another dark period happening in the days after the Charlie Kirk assassination. For the country did not come together. And there's a mirror up on our country right now, and pretty much right now, it's not a pretty picture. That's that one guy. Then this other person, we are more divided than ever recently. And that was from MSNBC, How Can Americans Bridge a Growing Political Divide, September 14th. We also have this one. Dr. Carr is a very famous African-American. He teaches at Howard. He is brilliant. He just did a show also October 4th. Can America continue? Should it? Where they ask, can America continue and should it continue? Not to be missed, on October 1st, Fox News with Megyn Kelly had a debate where they basically said the left and right can't get together. This guy on the right, the African-American gentleman in the top corner, is saying, hey, things could get worse. We need to come together. And Megyn Kelly saying, can't work with the left at all. They're all crazy. So you have high-level shows saying, wow, the division is worse than anything we've seen. Academics are saying that. Regular folks on their own are saying that. And then here comes the New York Times with a poll saying that other agencies are also doing polling that shows things are getting bad also at the same time. I also want to show you this. This is a series of responses online from conservatives. So Darkside has 28,000 views. I Will Never Coexist with These Subhumans, 143,000 views. Where the hell does the U.S. go from here? 12.6 million views. We Cannot Coexist, 1,000 views. We Cannot Coexist, 257 views. I Cannot Coexist, 22,000 views. I Don't Care to Coexist, 3,000 views. Nothing. We Cannot Coexist, 18.4 thousand views. These We Cannot Coexist, 16,000 views. There Can Be No Unity with This Evil, 14,000. We Will Never Coexist, 60,000. We Cannot Coexist, 70,000. This Is Who We Coexist With, 6,000. We Can't Get Along If You're Going to Kill Us, 9,000. Death of Unity has about 120,000. We Cannot Coexist. This is an established whatever from Amiri, 178,000. And then my favorite, Matt Walsh, We Cannot Unite with the Left, at 6 million views. 6 million views. We cannot work with the left. Here's the conservatives. Can't work with the left. Here's Megyn Kelly. Can't work with the left. Here's minorities saying maybe this is over. Here's minorities. I mean, it's not lost on me that there's a couple African Americans in here and women, and they're going, it's over. That's what these people are asking. Finally, let's get to this. Liberals more likely to cut ties with friends and family over politics. 40% of liberals said it's okay to cut off someone if they're not following your brand of politics. Also, I'll point out that liberals jumped from 12 to 28% in the last couple months in support of violence, and liberals seem to be more interested in cutting off other people. Now, historically, I would say the conservatives were prone to violence. Certainly, Trump was the one that popularized this idea, and he would talk about beating people up or roughing people up. Or remember the Proud Boys, and he said, stand down and stand by, and conservatives laughed and thought it was great. Well, now the shoe's on the other foot. Liberals seem to be laughing to them, and conservatives are scared. It's all bad. When the Proud Boys were almost threatening an election, liberals were scared. And when conservatives see liberals laugh at one of their own being killed, they're scared. People are scared. Here's another study. This comes from Just Security, Assassinations in America, How Political Violence Became Personal. Rather than rejecting this trend, Americans thus far appear to be growing increasingly accepting of violence. Sadly, support for political violence shifts depending on which party is in power. For instance, a survey taken by the Chicago Project on Security and Threats found 40% of Democrats were willing to use force. That is linked to that New York Times article. We may be on the brink of an extremely violent era in politics, June 16, 2025, to remove Trump from office. Correspondingly, Republicans during Joe Biden's administration found similar responses. And that goes to a Washington Post article from January 1st, 2022. 1 in 3 Americans say violence against government can be justified. So both sides have way too high numbers saying that they support violence. And both sides are saying the country can't come together. And both sides are saying they fear political violence. Well, there you have it. I wanted to show you this. In the last 10 days alone, all of this has exploded. It wasn't actually the assassination, and I think that's key. Somebody got killed horribly. That's not what actually split the country. It was the reaction. It was the liberal reaction and then the right's view of that. And then the liberal reaction to the right's reaction. That's what's dividing the country. Culture. It wasn't actually violence. It was culture. And now you're seeing the statistics backing that up. You're seeing intellectuals and you're seeing everybody talking about it. This was a turning point on the road to independence for California because the whole thing's crumbling. We'll leave it there.